And whereas Unit 10 focuses on objectivity and it is contents, truthfulness, humanness, and social responsibility. So let us begin with the Unit 9, that is concept and nature of journalism. So in this, the objective of this lesson is that we will be knowing the definition of journalism and also understand that if so journalism is there, so what are its functions in the society, and also throw a light on the role and the scope of journalism in the Indian context. Then also discuss and understand the role of journalism, especially related to a democratic setup and also protecting the secularism and being a catalyst in the development. So let us begin. As we understand that we, uh, uh, we are a social animal. We cannot imagine our life without communication and we are always very keen in knowing the information. So we see that that journalism is also one form of a communication where it plays a decisive role in building better relationship. If you go back somewhere into the industrial revolution in Europe, basically we see that it paved the way for the journalism. Then later on we see that there is a printing technology that helped everybody to pass on the information easily through in a print form. So it is, however, a modern genre. When we say journalism, it is something related to the modern society. And but then we see that it is has taken the roots in the Western countries. And however, we have seen that it has ushered into India very late after the colonies and British rule. We see that it is the way how it has come into India. However, we see that vernacular journalism appeared in 19th century. A brief about the printing technology. Let us understand it was invented and developed in China by Han Chinese printer Bi Sheng. Yeah, in the years 1041 and 1048 is what we trace it out. Then we see in Korea the movable metal typing printer was invented, and in the West the invention of an improved movable type mechanical printing technology was credited to German printer Johannesburg. So this is how we understand that might be the Chinese thing and all Korean thing we don't see, but we feel the Indian, the father of printing is been credited to Johannes Gutenberg who brought this technology in 1450. In 1432, Gutenberg published the first book, and that is the Bible that was published. However, let us understand that what is the definition of journalism, um, in general, if you see that in the history, in the villages and all those things, so there was one concept of Akasa Ramanna, which was where, people used to gather under a tree, meet common people, and one paper was been, tied to the branch of a tree, and the contents were there. And the Akasa Ramanna was something anonymous. This is only to say that, it is something that the information was being formed or there was some kind of a communication. Yeah. So it is now giving a professional touch is what the journalism is all about. Yeah. However, we see that, the radio, later on, we see radio was the device that has been uh, popular among the people. Then the newspaper, we definitely have newspaper, but then literacy was a big challenge. Yeah. So we see with the growing world and the changing world, there is definitely a systematic communication system that is important. However, let us understand what exactly the journalism stands for and means to. Okay. So journalism is basically a social activity that is concerned with the dissemination of news and views about the society, which encompasses the publication of news and views on various aspects. And basically talking about the human activities. And that is printed in newspapers or periodicals. So firstly, it is a social activity. Secondly, it disseminates the information. It talks about the views of the society, and it is a kind of a publication where the news and views on various aspects relatedly, most importantly to the human activities, are being published. That publication can be newspaper and in periodicals as well. Yeah. So when earlier general, when we go to the journal, if you commerce, anybody has a commerce background, journal is something where we keep a daily record of happenings. It's a diary, it's a logbook, it's a daily newspaper, it's a magazine, and a daily record of the business. However, let us understand that uh, the professional meaning. So according to the Webster dictionary, it is a record of transaction of a legislature, committee, club. Random. The Webster dictionary defines it as a record of transaction of a legislature, yeah, then committee or a club. Then the other one also defines, Random House Dictionary defines journalism as that writing that reflects the superficial thoughts and research, or talking about a popular slant and a hurried composition conceived as exemplifying newspapers or popular magazines. So there are different ways of understanding the journalism. However, if we talk about Matthew Arnold's view of journalism, it is literature in a hurry. So everybody has their own creativity of explaining what journalism is, but then we also know that it is something where it is connecting the society, passing on the information. So Ronald E. Wolseley, the famous American professor of journalism, defines that it is the systematic and reliable dissemination of public informing, public opinion, and public entertainment by modern mass media of communication. So, thus we can say that, it is something where it is a systematic effort, and where you can be reliable on the information that is being formed, and this information should be helpful in public opinion and also sometimes a public entertainment. But then all this can only happen with the use of modern mass media of communication. However, just to have an information, the other definitions could also be the activity of profession of writing for newspapers or magazine, or broadcasting news or radio. So in general, it is something, an activity, or it is a profession. Then second one, it can also understood in terms of collecting, writing, editing, and presenting of news. Yeah, the mass medium, as the professor Ronald E. Wolseley has said, it is having some mode of transmission media. So it could be a newspaper, it could be a magazine, it could be a radio, and it could be a television broadcast. So the other definition is it is something material written for publication in a newspaper or a magazine. Yeah, the style of writing characteristics of material in newspaper and magazine consists of direct presentation of facts or occurrence with little attempt at analysis or interpretation. So the third one is talking about that it has a special characteristics, that it has some written material, but then there is a direct presentation of facts. That is how what the professor has said, that it has reliable dissemination. So it is basically based on the facts and less of analysis or interpretation. Gradually, we see that, editorials and all those things, they have got the analysis and interpretation also. However, we can end that, journalism is concerned with public affairs, and in the modern times, the horizon of journalism has widened, and the limits of mere reporting and political, it is just not, mere reporting of political or economic news. Yeah. So when we have talked so much about journalism, so there are certain functions that journalism has in the society. Basically, when we say the main function of journalism is to bring light to the people, otherwise also it is called as a watchdog, it is called as, torchbearer of the society. I know it is called as a fourth estate. Yeah. So, howsoever, it is something Ultimately, the objective of journalism is to bring to light the people and associate them about the field that is going around them. However, we see that, uh, it is a pen that can matter about the political happenings. Yeah. So the present tendency is to achieve all the information so that they can provide to the readers briefly as soon as possible. So information is now flowing fast to the people through various media. Media is known to be playing an effective role, not only informing the people, but also influencing and shaping their attitude. And this is what called as a public opinion. So basically, when we look at the functions of journalism, it is basically first is to inform, to educate, to interpret, to mold opinion, to enable decision making, and also entertain the readers or audiences. Yeah. So journalism, apart from that, we also have other functions like political, economic, century, record keeping, social, marketplace, and agenda setting. Yeah. So let us understand each. The political function, as we understand that, the free press carries the obligation of providing the public with information in order to have decisions on the governance. Yeah. The political function, what the journalism plays is something like of a watchdog. For example, if you see that, we have elections and there are many contenders for the power, it is the responsibility of the press to analyze the agenda of our political parties and in an objective way, and keep the reader informed about the views of the contending parties. So basically, it is something where it is doing a watchdog function and trying to understand that, what are the governance doing. Yeah. So unfortunately, we end up with only criticism, but it is something, it is we where the information has to be like a watchdog and provide and update the political happenings in your society through newspapers or the electronic media. Then the other one is the economic function, is where the welfare of humankind, about informing about the economic policies of the government and analyzing all this so that the help readers can understand what is happening in the country. So it should also update the matters that may change society, because the economy is not just stagnant, it is dynamic in nature. So we see that there is an economic function that includes supplying the public with information about products, goods, services, in addition to the events. The other one is the sentry function, where the journalism is to keep a watch on the impending events. There are so many things happening, such like as a natural calamity, spread of an epidemic, a war or a drought, unprecedented incidents. So these situation needs definitely a follow up. Yeah, journalism should try to keep up the story as much as they can and give the information, and the press has to keep an eye on such issues such as, the police governing the hate groups, the elderly, what may happen to these groups. So we have to. It is something where a center is something who will be supervising the issues. So similarly, there is a supervision to be done when untoward incidents happen. Then, if you see, this record keeping function is very important. Whenever you have some legal implications or something, it is been referred to the newspapers. So journalism keeps a correct record on local, national, and world news. And we see that, record keeping function is to get on the information so that they can inform audiences about the past history. Yeah. Then very important is the social function. Um, the press gives information on events going on a community and around the world, and it has a watchdog role to be played to protect the social environment. Then marketplace function. So it is a forum where we see all the ideas to be presented, and the public can contact the press with the concerns over projects, environmental issues, or any kind of individual concern. Yeah. So This is how we see that, we can interact with the people, take the help of, press to raise the grievances or the concern. Yeah. Then agenda setting. This is very important. And this is the in thing that not only today, but every time we see. So agenda setting. The media has a power to dictate what we talk about the individuals and address as a nation, though it is supposed to be done objectively, right? The agenda setting function has a large influence on audiences. In fact, journalism doesn't have to tell audience what to think, but it could tell an audience what to think about. Yeah. So this is a major function that we see that media does. So the media, why we say that it has an agenda setting function? Because the mass media are capable of reaching, vast audiences because of the newspapers and technology and the broadcast or the films. So a single broadcasting network can reach millions of the people. The world stands with these technological advancements, and we see that we can interact with most of the people effectively with the help of the communication systems. So, however, we see that that they are well informed and they here when you pass on the information with the continuous information, you set an agenda there. So those are the functions. Now let us understand what you mean, what is the role and the scope of a journalism in the Indian context. So as we say that pen is mightier than the sword, yeah. So there are several events happening that is related to the political, cultural, religious, educational, social, and natural. So how do we come to know about this? We come to know only with the help of the media. It was earlier mouth to mouth, but now we see that the technological advancement has helped to understand. So we feel we see that that the main of journalism is not only talking about the information, but also we see that it has a major role and aim that should be of investigating, and it should be analyzing and reporting local as well as the world events, talking about the trends, everything. So we see that media plays a crucial role in shaping a healthy democracy, and it is a backbone of a democracy. So it makes us aware of the social, political, and economic activities around the world, and it is just like a mirror that reflects what is happening in the reality. Yeah. However, we see that the media has evolved to become more active over the years. It is through the media that politicians are reminded of their unfulfilled promises at the time of election. This is how we see that, record keeping, so that you go into the past and talk about this one. The excessive coverage by TV news channels during election helps people, especially illiterates, in electing the right person to the power. Yeah. Television and radio have significant achievements in educating rural illiterate masses and making them aware of all the events, and also coverage of exploitative malpractices of village heads, moneylenders, has helped bring, stringent action upon them by attracting the government's attention. So the media exposes the loopholes in the democratic system, which ultimately helps the government make the system more accountable, responsive, and citizen friendly. However, we see that democracy, media and democracy are hand in hand. They have to go together. So in the age of information technology, where we have lots of information flow coming up, and we get the pulse of the world events with just a click of a mouse, just a click away. So we see that the perfect blend of technology has to be done for in the interest of the society. How we can as well conclude that technology has brought a revolution in journalism. Now let us understand a brief history of media in India. Yeah. So when we talk about the brief history of in media, basically we refer during the colonial period and through the British rule. Yeah. So, however, we see that, the very first newspaper published, though Johannes Gutenberg was the first person who brought the printing technologies to India. But we see that, James Augustus Hickey in 1780 was an English person who published the first newspaper called as Bengal Gazette. Yeah. he was critical. He was writing critically about the East India Company, and before the independence, most of the newspaper fought against the British colonialism and lent a helping hand to the national movement. So we see that the press has played an important role in the national movement also. So after independence, newspapers are also playing a key role. But I would like to add also that, though it was about the Bengal Gazette and all those newspapers, we also see that, the vernacular press has also come into existence there. And Rajaram Mohan Roy, who is called as the father of Indian journalism, in order to curtail the serum for machineries, propagandas, and information, he too started talking about the information related to the society, and had been a great social reformer through his newspapers like Miratul Akbar, Sambud Kambundini, and all those papers. So we see that definitely our vernacular press also was present. Yeah. So the press also brings to the notice the government public reaction to the government policies and decision. It keeps the public and the government informed of the events and happening, as we understand, because it is getting connected. So, however, one should understand that the journalism is just not a profession but a mission who want to create a difference in the society by bringing a correct awareness among the people, talking about their equality, rights, and justice. So, however, see that, right to information is one such law where we see that Inadu Telugu daily newspaper is devoting continuously a page every week since 2008 to bring awareness among the public about the right to seek information. So, if we quote one example, so we see that Inadu newspaper is basically talking about the laws, as we said that, giving away, creating awareness. So one such example where we can quote is about the, Inadu newspaper, where it is continuously giving the information about right to information, how to access it, and how people can avail the information and seek the information. Then we see that, yeah. At the same time, the criticism and analysis of the taxpayers and how the government officials are behaving can also be taken into the consideration and can be discussed, can be published in the newspaper, so that people should be aware that how their own hard-earned tax money that is been paid as a tax is been used for the nation building. As we are free to express because of the article 19(1)(a), which gives in our constitution, which gives a freedom to speech and expression. So that way we see that journalism has a role and a status wherein it can bring changes, it can create a difference, it can help in getting the justice, maintaining a peace in the society, maintaining the communal harmony. Yeah. So at the same time, we also see there is an egalitarian system. So news plays a key role in our life, which we cannot deny, as we are getting connected with all these happenings around our world. So, India is on the way of becoming a democratic world power. We understand that, we know that we got independence in 47, and after getting the independence, we chose an egalitarian system where we opposed to the stratified past for organizing its society. When adopting such system, we also assume that there are no faults, and one of those is that together we will be into the society as legislative, executive, judicial powers, and media as the fourth estate. Yeah. So, as Amartya Sen says says in his book called as The Argumentative Indian, he says that Indians' intellectual pluralism is breathtaking and rich. In fact, given its vast intellectual traditions and capacities, it might be India's greatest secret weapon. So, Because of our India's intellectual pluralism, we can use this intellectual as a secret weapon and also, pass on the information and help in building the nation. So journalism has a fundamental role, as we understand, by giving information that can exercise their citizenship and participate in government decisions. With also watch closely the actions of the government to make sure that the jobs are accurately and honestly being done. To fulfill this, journalism cannot be controlled or manipulated to serve the interest of the power. Only free and independent journalism is being advocated. Yeah, that can be helpful to the democracy. We also see that, that Walter Lippmann, an American philosopher, John Dewey, debated over the role of journalism in a democracy. Their differing philosophies characterize a debate about the role of journalism in the society and the nation state. Lippmann understands that journalism role at the time was to act as a mediator or translator between the public and policy-making elites. The journalist became the middleman. So we see that, when elites spoke, journalists listened and recorded the information, distilled it, passed it on to the public for their consumption. Lippmann felt that the public was not in a position to deconstruct the growing and complex flurry of information in the modern society. Then he put the form of journalism in this way, that the public is not smart enough to understand complicated political issues. Further, the public was to consume with their daily lives to care about complex public policies. So therefore, we need to interpret the decision or the concerns of the elite to make the information plain and simple. So Lippmann believed that the public would affect the decision making of elite and their vote. So according to the Lippmann, the journalist's role was to inform the public of what the elites are doing rather than just giving the information. Then it was also to act as a watchdog over the elites and the public and the final say with their votes. So American philosopher also, on the other hand, believed that public was not only capable of understanding the issues created or responded by the elite, it was basically the journalism has to be a public forum for the decisions so that they can have a discussions and debate. So this is how we see that, the scholars, the thinkers had an understanding that, how the journalism should be and should cater to the democratic nations. Let us also understand what is community journalism. So this concept of community journalism is a part of a new development as in the journey of journalism. Though it is a new paradigm, journalists are able to engage citizens and experts and elites in the proposition and generation of the content. So this community journalism is a newer addition to the running journalism. But then the best part is that, they engage the citizens and they engage the experts and the elites. So which is a basic proposition of a journalism. So Lippmann, while we were referring to the Lippmann's, so according to his journalistic philosophy, it should be more acceptable to the government leaders. Dewey's approach is better description of many journalists see their role in the society. So how much of society expects we should work according to that so that it caters to the society. So corruption-free governance is a basic human right, and media has a big role to play in helping citizens enforce this right. Delivering, we see Justice Verma, Chief Justice of India, J.S. Verma, while delivering an inaugural address at an international conference on media and governance in 2007, he said that, that there are 7 principles that has to be conducted and enumerated by Lord Nolan Committee in England, which are applicable to everyone in the public life, whether they belong to the first, second, third, or fourth. So there are certain principles that has to be followed irrespective whether you are, it is just not the media that has to follow that one, but as well as the four pillars of the democracy, that is the legislature, judiciary and executive along with the media has to follow. What are those seven principles? Like selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, transparency, honesty and leadership. So when we are talking to cater to the society, so all the pillars of the society of the democracy has to follow this one, because the media has the ability to be a solution provider to the critical issues. So for example, if you see that there was an endless coverage about the celebrity like Amitabh Bachchan, but burning issues like the suicide of farmers receive hardly any attention. India is a society divided by many, it's a multiple pluralistic society. So we have to see that, you have a balance in reporting. So democracy, secularism and development is also part of it. As we said that, democracy can only survive with the media because it gives, accurate, transparent information, governance as we keep working like an performing a watchdog function, so it will be helpful. So a democracy cannot function properly without the press informing the public, exposing the voters to the market and holding public officials accountable. Yeah. So founding fathers like Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru were strong advocates of freedom of press, and they imposed certain criteria. According to Gandhiji, he said that the soul aim of journalism should be service. The newspaper is a great power, so it has to be something, but just as an unchanged torrent of water submerges the whole countryside and the devastated crops, even so an uncontrolled pen serves but destroys. So he has alarmed that, the pen which is mightier than sword should work for the development of the country, and it is a service that has to be performed. And also we see that, that Nehru, even Gandhiji has considered the role of a newspaper. He wrote that, in his humble opinion, then it is wrong to use a newspaper as a means of earning or a living. Yeah, it should be something of a service. So Nehru expressed his opinions on various occasions, and he has given the following noteworthy information, saying that the press, if it wants freedom, which is ought to have, must have some balance of mind, which is seldom possessed. One cannot have it both ways. Even freedom in this world is limited, so it has to be carefully taken care of. And as I said, there are certain checks and balances that has to go in a democratic country. So being analytic is a different thing, criticizing is different thing, but at the same time, you have to see that when you are part of the journalism, you have to keep certain checks and balances so that, it gives a healthy democracy. Then in a secularistic society, there is a greater role for the media to maintain, because it has, when we understand secularism, it is something equal treatment to all religions by the state. Yeah. So keeping that into the consideration, we have to see that there is also a communal harmony that has to be maintained by the press. Then as India is a developing country, this is a new term that has been coined and that is called as development journalism, where we can talk about the issues related to particular community, particular groups, where they have to give and covering related to socio-economic development, and if they have to talk about health, environment, infrastructure, agriculture, gender issues. So all these are related to the development. So the development issues are very important, and development journalism has a great scope in and 5-year plans. So we understand now we don't have, but we have Niti Aayog. So prior to that, we had development plans. So 5-year plans. So development involves change, and we understand that the Planning Commission brings out a Yojana, a journal. So there is basically a Yojana journal that has been brought by the Indian government talking about the plans and developing issues. Then there is a concept of information rich and information poor. So as we understand, development journalism includes an excellent communication that should be able to, because the development journalism is related to the grassroots level. So where we try to talk about the development issues of pertaining to education, health, nutrition, infrastructure. So it should be something where it should be more comprehensive, it should be more understandable, it should be sharing, and it should be educating the masses. But we see that because of certain challenges like education and all those things, they are not able to understand. And we also see that the bitter truths come in front of us. We try to ignore because of some XYZ reasons. So development journalism should be a responsible journalism, is a responsible journalism where we have to cater it to the society. So next we have principles of journalism. So in this, we will be talking about the journalism as information and communication, and explain its objectivity and its contents, and talk about the truthfulness, humanness, social responsibility, and social good, and explain the free and facts, how much they are important in a democratic country. So as we understood what is journalism is all about, so let us understand journalism as information and communication. So in the beginning, we understood that journalism is an extended form of a communication where we are trying to communicate with the society at large. So this communication has a purpose where we are intending to send a message that are related to the development or related to the legislative, executive, or the judiciary of the society. So thus, we understand that journalism is just not a tool of a communication, but it is rather what is trying to do. It is trying to give lots of information, educated and entertain people. Now, in this era, we see that information is power. So the main function of journalism is to inform and educate the people. So information, why are we talking about the information? Because information helps to gain knowledge, and which leads to wisdom, and which drives the people to come to a conclusion, and help them to take a proper decision. So if information does not enhance knowledge, and therefore we don't have a very quicker look, a beautiful presentation. Yeah. So we see that has made our heavy inroads into the sphere of journalism. So Indian press is beyond in terms of growth in circulation, number of languages, and multi-city editions, in which we see there are number of newspaper published. So Indian press definitely enjoys the complete freedom, but there are, certain civil laws also that protects. It talks about the defamation law. It talks about the contempt of court. However, we also see that there is a pre-censorship that was imposed during the emergency. Um, but information has to be passed on. Then communication part. So as we said, communication is very fundamental to the social society, as we need a participation from the public. So when we are saying journalism, it is just not you are only receiving the information, but as well you are trying to participate in the ongoing process by giving your public opinion, by molding your thoughts. You are trying to understand what is happening, you are questioning, you are understanding. So the field of communication covers a broad range of discipline targeted towards a narrow audience and the narrow approach. So it is from the narrow approach to the broader audience that the communication has to take place in terms of a journalism. So we understand that journalism is a practice of investigating and reporting events, issues, and trends to the mass audience in terms of different medias. So basically, what the journalists should do is that they have to provide the stories that are research based. So newspapers, magazines, and web stories require research before writing. Yeah, so they have to conduct research and gather information. They have to journalists use have to use the observation, interview, and background research here to give a research based tourism. Writing hard news and feature stories. So as part of the journalism, we have hard news, which are all the daily routine, talking about the political, the economical development and all those things. So we see that they are shortly and very timely and focused on telling what's happening around in and around. But whereas when we come to a feature story, it is something like a soft news where it is not timely but need topical news. So newspapers and web features, magazine articles are more in depth and less rigid structured. They might be interviews, travel, reports, profiles. So apart from that, we see shooting photographs and videos, editing stories, checking facts. And at the same time, there should be some objectivity and it's in this contents. As we understand, is it is expected, journalism is always expected to be impartial. Yeah, so as part of that, we have to see that, that you need to have some kind of objectivity. So this discipline of journalism has a certain responsibility and should have some verification, and it has to separate from entertainment. The information what you give for the reporting should be separated in terms of when you are giving information in terms of entertainment propaganda, and it should be a verified information. It should not be entertainment based, it should not be propaganda, it should not be fiction or art. This is especially when we are referring to the hard news. So we see that there is an objectivity is a value free concept where journalists decision are always prioritizing this. So when we talk of a professional value system, we have applied this objectivity in terms of, which is related to the society. So it becomes very imperative to present news in an attractive package because news providers are in commercial competition with another. But that doesn't mean that we have to overlook the objectivity. So one objectivity is one part when reporting the news item. At the same time, these are the principles. Fairness in reporting has to be there, because the fairness is something which will judge the report. To be fair means providing more information about the context as possible in the circumstances. For example, the fact of a strike and the inconvenience it will cause, fairness dictates that you should also include the reasons, justification for the strike and events leading up to it. So objectivity itself has certain limitations, and it is more important to be fair than being objective. Yeah. Then truthfulness, humanness, social responsibility, and social good. So the first obligation of a journalist is to be very truthful. So truth is something where it is a person's individual responsibility also. And when you are passing in information to a wider audience, then you should have an obligation that you should be very true in your reporting. Then when we are talking about the humanness, yes, definitely a mankind is issues related to the mankind that can build the relationship, that can create in communal harmony should be our first consideration. Yeah. Then as we understand that media has a role of a social responsibility. It has to take even that role and disseminate its role in a proper way. So as we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give, said Winston Churchill. So media is not only a mirror of a society but instrument of social change. So when we are talking about a social responsibility, it should be something related to and catalyst of a social change. So we see that in the past we had radio rural forums, we had KEDA project, side project, where the media was being used. However, Ultimately, we understand that, a media or a journalism should be driven by truthfulness, fairness, objectivity, and the information should be more relevant. At the same time, they should be in a position to report freely, and at the same considering the self-regulation. Yeah. So media should follow agreed codes. We have certain codes of ethics and professional conduct also. So socially responsible media should represent the public and speak in their interest in order to make a government accountable. So there is a concept of a social good. What exactly we mean to that one is that it is a good service that we are trying to benefit the largest number of the people in the best possible way. So, like for example, giving clean air, clean water, and literacy. In addition, the economic changes. So it is something where it is related to the social good. It is trying to talk about the facilities, the accessibilities, the right to live in a very clean environment, and all those things are part of the social good. So media establishments may have become industries, but journalism is not confined to a business. So unfortunately, we don't believe that one, but because the media's financial, backbone is the finance that comes with the advertisement and the business. So there is always the hegemony of the media owners, which is not able to or giving a scope for true journalism. So anyhow, the purpose should be beyond the profit making. It has to preserve the rights and interests of the people. So journalism may furnish information that is related to the readers and audiences. Then only the media can protect the public information and public interest. So the media has to work as a social good. And we also see that, there is a comment is free, facts are sacred. C.P. Scott, editor of Manchester Guardian, in his famous article in 1921 said that a newspaper is of necessity something of a monopoly, and its first duty is to shun the temptation of monopoly. Its primary office is for gathering of the news, and it must see that it is supplying the news and that is not tainted. Neither what it gives, nor in what it does not give, nor in the mode of a presentation must the unclouded face of truth should not be suffered. So he said that a comment is free, but facts are sacred. So propaganda, so called by this means, is hateful. Here they have to also see that, the voice of opponents, and not less than the friends, has to be rightly heard. Yeah, it is not that, if you are having an influence of a politician or anybody XYZ, then only your voice should be heard. But comment, the voice of everybody should be heard properly. So comment also is justly subject to a self-imposed restraint. It needs to be frank enough. It is better to be fair enough, which we have been continuously talking about, right? So this is an ideal thing that as a journalism or as a journalist, we have to follow this one. Achievement in such matters is hardly given to a man, but they can always be a shortcomings, but we have to see that, the truth shouldn't suffer whatsoever your way of working be. We also believe that change is the order of the day. Yeah. The above words of Scott are still relevant despite many changes have occurred in the arena of journalism. Though he expressed about this in 1921 in a leading article, this much quoted essay has endured as the ultimate statement of values for a free press. So he was advocating for a free press. They are considered as a blueprint for independent journalism. What really this means is that the newspaper should fulfill a higher function than merely making a profit, and it should ultimately educate, influence, and inform. The newspaper is much more than a business. A commitment to independent journalism means creating the condition for brave, compassionate, radical, and always independent reporting. So ultimately, when we say about news reporting, here there should be a commitment to an independent journalism. That means which is free in nature. That means which has a where you have a scope for a free press. So it should be committed for independent journalism that can create a conditions for brave, compassionate, radical, and always independent reporting. So that means giving a place and scope for fair reporting. However, we see that in this digital age, the nature of journalism is fast changing. The way they interpret and apply the values are so determined to protect will of one of the greatest test. Yeah. Unless we allow plurality of opinion, belief, and diversity helps the deliberate process of democracy. Yeah, when we say democracy, it is something, you have a plurality of opinion, you have a belief, you understand what is diversity and the deliberate process. So until and unless we don't have in a democracy, we cannot preserve and practice independent journalism. Now we have to understand that the line of demarcation between facts and comments is very oftenly blurred. So comment is routinely blended with facts and there is corresponding fall. Whereas, when anybody used to comment, we used to go for the fact checking, but now the comment is being added with some XYZ fact and blended with fact, and there is a corresponding fall in public confidence about the accuracy and objectivity of journalism. The veracity is at stake. I hope everybody agrees with this point also. The present situation is all talking about the same comment. So journalism has, because ultimately the veracity of the media, the information cross-checking is at stake. So journalism has every right to comment on anything, but they are not supposed to mix comments with the facts. Facts and comments are two distinctive features. Making a comment is nothing but expressing an opinion. Yeah. Journalists are constantly faced with problems of reporting facts and opinion. They must be able to distinguish between them. It is important in both news gathering and writing. It affects how you deal with what you are told and how you pass the information. A fact can be defined as something that is said to have occurred and is true in nature. So, as a journalist, you need to know the reliability before you can report facts, because it determines how you present them to your readers and listeners. So, there are three kinds of facts. One is proven fact, one is probable fact, one probable lies. Yeah. So, proven facts are the statements which are reasonable to believe. Yeah. But you may not be able to prove. So, as a journalist, you have to see that, proven facts are which are proven and accepted as true by everyone. So, for example, like the world is round, that is what, or Barack Obama is a president. So, these are all proven facts. So, you could check these facts for yourself. Of course, facts can change. It is proven that Barack Obama is president at time. So he's after his tenure, he may not be there, but it's a proven fact. So the probable fact is also about reasonable belief. Then probable lies is about the people occasionally make statements which seems on the surface to be untrue, but which might have just be a true. For example, the Prime Minister has secretly married a 16-year-old fashion model. Yeah, it just might be true. You always check such statements before using them and never use them without confirming them first. Yeah. Then opinions are all different from facts. Yeah. So an opinion is a conclusion reached by someone after looking at the facts. Opinions are based on what people believe to be a fact. This can include probable facts and even probable lies. Then there are also verifiable opinions, which are, these are the conclusions that which can be verified. Then there is an expert opinion also. It is worth mentioning here a special category of opinion that is called as expert opinion. Experts can give their opinion. For example, like we had a COVID and all those things. So there we see that, the experts can talk about give a thorough information, like, talking now the summary is coming, so what is the expert opinion, and there are verifiable opinions about the issues related to some murder mysteries, or to the corruption and all those things. So when you have an opinion, that should be verified. When you have an opinion, if it is judged with the expert, can be considered for the betterment of the society, then always you have proven facts to be considered while reporting probable fact. There is a possibility of having a probable facts also, and probable lies also. So they can be, the journalism doesn't work on presumptions and assumptions, but what ultimately journalism works is that it has to be basically on the truthfulness, on the fairness, and the objectivity should be maintained as part of your journalism journey and as part of the reporting. So this is all about the concept of journalism and principle of journalism that we have come across. And with this, I just end today's lesson. If you have any quotes or any information to be asked, please, you can interact. I hope you have understood the concept. Basically, what is journalism more than the context, more than this written material. I think as a individual person, we need to have uphold our own values and integrity, and to serve the society, so that you can bring a change, scope for confidence of speaking the truth. So ultimately, the journalism should matter, because it is connected till the life is on the earth. The journalism shall be connected. So till we are living, we have to see that how we justify our role as a journalist, and as part of the journalism, we should cater to the best of the society. So this is all about today's topic. Anything you would like to interact? Fine. If not, I would end the session. Yeah, any queries?
Nothing, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. Then shall I end this session?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. See you in the next session.
Have a good day, ma'am.
Yeah, have a good day. See you. Bye.